they're just like nice people. Like Zach seems nice, but that's not the era we're in. We're not in the era of nice. I just sort of felt like when I was watching the Greens, when it was their own stuff, the leaders feel just very like, they feel like they would be good part of the team. Like they would be a good person to communicate to certain types of people. But they didn't feel like the front voice. Like it didn't feel, there's two leaders, which is inherently in and of itself, it's like that makes it harder to remember. Like you always, one person makes sense. And they're just like nice people. Like Zach seems nice, but that's not the era we're in. We're not in the era of nice. And the other one seems nice and empathetic, but doesn't like, they need to have that punchy, attacking thing. And that's what I like. I know you do not like Ed Davies, but that's what I like about him as a person. And I perceive things a lot from, like, I have my core political views of where I want the country to go. I want to go to a much more left-wing type country. But I'm looking at how do you get there? And a lot of that is politics and a lot of that is personality. And that's what the Greens, I don't know, they have the makings of being able to do something because they stand for the right stuff. But their weakness is in personality and media.
Yeah. I mean, the Greens organisers have been calling about this for a while. And I think the problem is that there's a kind of groupthink within the Green Party that you have to look like politicians. You have to play the political game. But I'm like, that would have worked when Caroline Lucas was doing it.
Yeah, she was good. She was good. She was a good personality. Yeah.
And she was good at doing the political game, like looking like a politician. But at a time of complete, country breakdown, which is what we're seeing, right? Britain is broken. Everyone knows it. Everyone can see it. Everyone feels it. It's you look at it in your paycheck and the cost of living, right? People have realised politicians have failed. Westminster has failed, right? The people aren't looking for politicians. They're looking for iconoclasts. And that's what the Green Party aren't. Or at least they're not representing being iconoclastic, even though the positions that they hold are iconoclastic to the kind of the perceived paradigm of politics, right? They advocate for things that are outside of the acceptable Overton window of discussion, even though people do support things like wealth taxes and capital gains being in line with income tax, universal basic income, a pay scale where CEOs can't get paid that much more than the people who get paid the lowest, or more funding for cooperative models and state ownership of critical industries and of natural monopolies, for example. These are all positions that are outside the acceptable Overton window, so it's iconoclastic, but they don't represent it in how they talk about politics because they don't understand that the Westminster game period of politics, that's over. It's dead and buried, and people are looking for someone who are attacking the system. It's just like in the Democratic Party now, you have the people who are playing along with the game who have no friends at all, like Chuck Schumer, and the actual support here, it's not about left or right or centrist, moderate, and like kind of leftist or socialist or progressive. The split is in, do you oppose the system or are you part of the establishment, right? Which is why you see and you hear it on the ground when you're campaigning as a Green Party representative that Reform UK voters are the most amenable to the Green Party. There's Luke Trill, who's everyone should go follow. Luke Trill from More in Common. He does really good work on polling and people's opinions, doing huge breakdowns of all the data that they've got. Highly, highly, highly recommended. The thing that unites Reform UK and Green supporters is a zero-sum thinking and a feeling of worry about the future. The future, they don't feel, they feel uncertain about the future.
But
right?
that's that populist genie out of the lamp, which I was saying. Yeah.
Exactly. So the people who feel like the system has let them down move to either side of the aisle. They just need to be given the right argument. And again, they're looking for a collectivist voice to oppose the individualist kind of zeitgeist that we've had for the last 46 years since Thatcher became a thing. Right? Greed is good. It's all about you. It's all about the self. There is no such thing as society. And the question is do we unite around class or do we unite around ethnicity? Right? That's what's going to happen. And if we don't give people the case to unite around class, then they're going to make the argument from the other side. It's just like with nationalisation. Labour abandoned nationalisation under Keir Starmer because they feel it was too politically divisive, or that the middle-class swing voters, because there's a whole other conversation about electoral balkanisation and where people are distributed in first past the post, but we can go into that later. But they need to appeal to these middle class swing voters, and they can't do that by being economically kind of pro nationalisation. At least they couldn't in 2019. Rather, that's why they lost a lot of votes there. Why they piled up safe seat votes but lost votes in swing seats. If there's no socialist there to make the argument for nationalisation, someone's going to make the national argument. Whether it's a reasonable national argument, like this is critical for our supply chains, this is part of our natural infrastructure, or they'll just go what Nigel Farage is doing with British Steel, going Chinese, it's Chinese fault.
Yeah.
China bad.
I'm genuinely glad you're working with the Greens, because it sounds like you totally get it. You get like the popular critique of Greens at the moment, and I would like, there is a part of me that loves the old aesthetic of Labour and would love for Labour to like become that again, but it just doesn't seem it's going to happen. And I do see the vessel of Greens. I do see it like as a potential. There was one thing I sort of see with like the green messaging in and of itself, is that I don't think, like, I know amongst young people talking about climate in the sense of, you don't want the fucking planet to blow up. It works. But I wonder if there is also the message of like national sovereignty over energy and not being dependent on nations that, are at war, that we've had wars with, that's been this endless battle. Nearly every inflationary crisis is because of oil or because of lack of access to oil. Oil is like this poison, like economically, that it's like this heroin economically that we are addicted to, that if the dealer says no heroin today, our whole economy crumbles and our society nearly collapses. And I think there's a message around sovereignty, that if we can move to green technologies, we take control of our own power. We can think about things like, if it's nationalized, we can invest it into sovereign wealth funds, all these sorts of things. I like the sovereign angle and like the anti-war angle. I think they're like quite potential, like it's a safe feeling, and I think that's a good message, good way of selling.
I would fold this into an anti-corporate message as well, right? Is that what would you prefer? Like us controlling it, right? Nationally, the British people together, the collective community, right? Owning this stuff together so we all share in the proceeds, or corporate, like corporations, big, massive, multi-billion-pound corporations, right? They control, because people don't like corporations as well. That's one Reform UK people, they say they don't like corporations, even though, billionaire, and multimillionaire CEOs donate to Reform UK, right? But they understand kind of corporate slop and their kind of control over society, right? American multinational corporations controlling things. This is where this kind of World Economic Forum conspiracy shit comes from. I don't know how much of this you've seen.
Yeah, deep in it. I have a mate who doesn't think viruses exist.
Well, but the thing is, there's a kind of a kernel of truth. There's a really great essay everyone should go read, which is, I think, Nobody Has to Be Cruel. I think it's called, it's by Zizek. Talking about how the World Economic Forum are essentially a pressure group to try and fix all the problems caused by international corporations in a way that is good for international corporations, right? They can't understand that they're patient zero. So to be able to self-perpetuate, they have to fix those problems without undermining themselves, right?
Interesting.
And so it's this idea that, because that's what the World Economic Forum is. It's just a big chamber of commerce internationally for corporations, right? For Apple and Amazon and Google and all of these big corporations to lobby governments, right? To get people in charge. Well, we have this market solution for climate change, right? When of course you look at, this is one thing. Privatized energy will not solve the climate crisis, right? You cannot get net zero under a capitalized privatized model. Even Denmark, who have a pretty large state sector in energy, they're not investing. No one wants to invest in their new wind projects, because they've created so much wind energy that if they got to the point where they only relied on it, the price would be so low that it wouldn't be profitable.
Man, it's the craziest. So I know it sounds mad that I'm in as deep as I am, and I only figured this out recently. I was like Googling, I was like, is it even possible to run a country on green? And it was like, we can't, yes. It was like, Google was like, yes, the technology is there, we just haven't got the political willpower to do it. And I'm like, the fact that literally we can do it, but it's just we're not doing it, it's insane. From like every possible way you could even possibly think about it, it's insane that we're not doing it. And I kind of ashamed me that I didn't even know that.
So if people don't know in chat, there's a thing called marginal cost pricing, which delineates that when we pay for energy, the unit price is based upon the most expensive generation at that at that point in time within the network, right? So if we keep our energy usage low enough that we only use the renewable sectors of the economy, then the price per unit is lower. And then as soon as we get over a certain threshold, we don't have enough renewable capacity, we turn on gas, which is more expensive. The strike price is more expensive. Suddenly the overall price goes up, and that's where the average kind of price cap is around about upon the broad understanding of where the peaks and troughs of the energy system are, you know? And renewables, you know, their cost that they have to produce the energy, that's not changed. But because gas has been switched on, the actual unit price increases and the renewables make more profits, right? So the renewables companies, I mean, there's a cap to this too, but broadly, renewables make more profits if we still use gas, which is why they won't increase their capacity within the private sector to get above that point where we don't need gas anymore
God
because
damn.
of the pricing system and the way we've privatized the market.